Most popular dining destination on the Las Vegas Strip. I'm not big on going to the Strip, but if there's a trip to Joe's involved, I'm there. Make a reservation, 702-792-9222, and have yourself a great time at Joe's. Teddy, what do we have for an angle of the day?
We were just talking about the Astros and the Red Sox, and I was talking about why I liked Houston in that game. I didn't want any more of Boston. So here's an angle for you. George Springer went 0 for 5 in his last game.
Which is hard to believe the way he's swinging the bat.
Exactly. No hits. The Astros, 16-0 the game after he went hitless. And the average score, the winning margin by 4.75 runs per game. That's pretty good.
George Springer is clearly an MVP candidate.
16-0 angle in favor of the Astros tonight as Road Chalk in Fenway.
That is Teddy Covers. I'm Dave Cokin. Today's show brought to you by Sunset Station Casinos, a great place to watch the Preakness tomorrow. And we're going to talk about the Preakness right now. And Marco DAngelo has made the long trek from home to the studio. Marco lives close by. And we're going to talk. We're going to just run through 1 through 12 here. And then we'll tell people later how they can get your package for the Preakness. I'm just going to give out my horse for what it's worth. Let's get started with War of Will, who comes in off, we'll call it a misleading 7th-place finish at the Kentucky Derby. The horse would have finished better than that if not for the interference down the stretch.
Yeah, I figure he would have finished second at worst, in my opinion, where he was making the move at. The problem is, Dave, that he's 4-1 on the morning line, and I think he's going to take a little bit more money. I think he should be more in the neighborhood of 6 or 7-1 before you'd consider a win bet. I will definitely have him on my exactas, but I think there's some better horses in the race at bigger prices on top.
And one of those could be the 2-horse, Bourbon War. That's a Henning horse. He's going to have the very talented Irad Ortiz in the saddle, coming off a 4th at the Florida Derby, which was not his best race, but it didn't set up real well for him. This is a horse that, if he doesn't lose track of the front runners, he's a closer who could pass a lot of horses late.
Yeah, and he's coming out of that Florida Derby, Dave, which we saw how well the horses from the Florida Derby ran in the Kentucky Derby. And that 4th-place finish was a very wide trip into slow fractions. They made an equipment change on this horse for this week. They're putting blinkers on him, and I can tell you personally, anytime my trainer put blinkers on a horse, that was to fire him up and have him closer in the race. So look for him to be closer than he was in that Florida Derby. I think he's got a big shot in this race.
Another horse that's interesting is Warriors Charge, the 3-horse. He's one of 2 Brad Cox horses in the field. Javier Castellanos will be in the saddle. He raced about a month ago at Oaklawn and did rather well. In fact, his last 2 races have been pretty exceptional. Now, the asterisk on that is it wasn't against Derby-level competition. But you can make the argument that this isn't a Derby-level field. So, Warriors Charge, kind of an interesting double-digit shot in this race.
Yes, Dave, and this horse wasn't eligible for the Preakness. He didn't make the sustaining payment, so to get into this race, he had to pony up $150,000 supplemental fee. What's curious is that he is out of the Brad Cox barn. They have another horse in this race.
Yes, they do.
And has a big chance. And that horse is a closer. And, Dave, if you got a closer in the race, the best way to get that closer home is to have fast fractions early. This horse might be the rabbit in the race for Owendale. I don't think he can carry the distance in here against these, but he's going to get us an honest pace, and I think that's going to help the closers.
This is one of the horses I looked at, and that's precisely why I got him out of there, because Cox has another horse in the race that might be a stronger horse, and it could be one hand feeds the other here. One hand washes the other. Improbable is the 4-horse. He will likely go off as the favorite. Baffert gets Mike Smith in the saddle. That is a deadly combination. I just don't know what this horse has in the tank right now. I thought he made a big run at the Derby and just couldn't get there. And granted, the conditions will be a lot better here. It's going to be a fast track tomorrow, but I'm taking a chance and leaving Improbable out of the mix.
Yeah, the only excuse you can give Improbable for the last race, because he got a perfect trip, he should have been able to strike from where he was at, is did the horse not like the mud? And I know he raced in the mud the race before that at the Arkansas Derby, but the difference was, Dave, he raced on the outside. He didn't have the mud up in his face. In the Derby, he was surrounded by horses the entire race, so he got mud in his face the whole time. I'll keep him on the ticket. He's going to be bet down too much because of Mike Smith, but this is a horse that has a license to reverse form from the Derby.
Another Brad Cox horse, we talked about the 3-horse. This is Owendale, and Owendale probably will get more play of the 2 horses. 10-1 morning line. I don't think that's going to hold. I think Owendale is going to go off somewhere in the 6-1 neighborhood. That's just my opinion. He's coming off a win at Lexington about a month ago at Keeneland, getting the job done in that race, and he looks to be a factor in this race.
He absolutely does, and that was the first time that Florent Geroux rode Owendale, and if you go back and watch the Lexington, the move he made in the last turn, he was 8th going into the turn. He swooped the field like they were standing still. When they came off the turn, he was on top and never looked back. If he has that same move in this race with fast fractions, he's going to be right there at the finish line.
The 6-horse is Market King. He'll be one of the long shots in the field, and justifiably so. This is Dwayne Lucas has won a lot of Preaknesses, but I don't think this horse has the ability to get there. It's not exactly a top rider either. Court's going to be on the horse. His last race was the Bluegrass, and it wasn't good. He's just in the field. It would take something extraordinary for this horse to win.
Yeah, this is one of my total pitches in the race. Has, in my opinion, no shot.
7 is Always Mining. And this is an interesting horse because I think the morning line, 8-1, I don't know, it looks to me like it's too expensive to me. I don't have this horse as one of my contenders.
This is an interesting horse, and I can tell you this is one of the wise guy horses. He's looked good in the mornings. He's on a 6-race winning streak. He's a Maryland bred. You know, this race is being in Maryland. But I can tell you, Dave, the last time a Maryland bred won the Preakness, 1983. I was skinny and had hair. That's a long, long time ago.
He's coming out of a race on April 20th, by the way, so a little less rest than some of the other horses. That was at Laurel. I don't know. You know, I might be missing something on that horse. I don't know if I'm missing something on this horse either. The 8-horse is Signal Man, and he finished 3rd in the Bluegrass a little over a month ago at Keeneland. Maybe a back end of the exotics type of horse. I don't think he can win.
I don't think he can win either, but he does have a good closing kick, and if this race does set up like we expect it to with speed, you could throw him on 3rd or 4th in your tries and supers to round out a ticket.
What about Boat Express, the 9-horse? He did run in the Derby. He didn't do anything in the Derby, but you know, did you just throw that race out? I mean, he's got some good connections, and even at 20-1, I mean, he's one of the longest shots in the field, but it's not. I'm not going to be shocked if this horse contends. He just ran a bad race in the Derby, and that can happen with 20 horses on the track.
Well, he did run a bad race because he quit in the stretch, Dave, but this is the horse. Everybody talked about the incident with War of Will and Long Range Toddy. Mm-hmm. This is the horse that was right behind those two and got taken out when those two collided. This is also the only horse in this race that can actually say he ran second to Maximum Security. He is the horse that ran second in that Florida Derby, and we know how those horses went on to race in the Derby. Biggest thing about Bodie Express, big driver change. This is the biggest jockey change in the race. They're going to John Velasquez. Yeah. I can't tell you how big of a jockey change that is. I will have him on a ticket to make a price.
Everfast will be the 10 horse. And he just ran a couple of weeks ago at the Pat Day Mile and ran 5th. Rosario's on him. I guess his connections will hope that he runs a better race than he did on Game Winner. I thought Rosario just absolutely blew it in the Derby with what might have been the best horse on the track that day. I'm stubborn. I played Game Winner, and I still think Game Winner. If you watch Game Winner down the stretch in that
horrible
race,
ride.
I mean, Rosario cost that horse a chance to win. I don't think he's got any chance with Everfast.
Teddy has a better chance of running into Preakness and winning than Everlast.
Laughing Fox.
That's the one I want then.
Yeah,
Everlast.
Laughing Fox is the 11 horse. 20-1. Won the Oaklawn Invitational a couple weeks ago at Oaklawn. Can this horse make the change to a little upgrade in competition? But he's off a very good race. So is this horse live at a big price?
Well, the only thing I could say for it is this is a horse coming out of one of the hottest barns in the country right now. Asmussen's horses are winning everywhere. That's all I can say for him. This is a big jump in class. He is a horse that races from behind. Again, if you want to sprinkle him on the bottom end of a try or a super, I can't argue with that, but I don't see this horse finishing first or second.
The 12th horse is Another Twist of Fate, and he is like the third or fourth choice right now, and I think he might go off a little closer to being the favorite. We'll have to wait and see. Jose Ortiz in the saddle, Blaine Wright, who is a West Coast trainer out of Washington State. This is the biggest race he has ever trained for, and he might have a real live horse here. It's a pretty good setup for this horse. If it sounds like I'm building this horse up, I am. This is my choice to win the Preakness. I really like that he got an outside post position. This is a stalker, so you don't want traffic problems early. Ortiz should be able to rate him where he wants him, being that he's got an outside post. And if the speed is what I think it could be, I think this is a horse that's got a real chance to run down the leaders and at least hit the board and maybe win the race. I went ahead and put a win wager in already on Another Twist of Fate, and I'll back it up with something tomorrow at whatever the odds happen to be. But I think this horse is real live.
This horse is going to have one of the best trips. As you said, leaving from the 12 post, all of the speed is to the inside of him. So he's going to leave out with them, and he will let those front runners go. I look for him to drop in like fourth or fifth to be sitting, and he will have the jump on the closers. He'll have the first run at those pace setters once they start to slow down. This is a big horse. You have to put him on the ticket. I agree with you, Dave. The only thing I have a problem with is Owendale beat him, and Owendale's 10-1, and you're getting less on Another Twist of Fate.
I watched the race, which is something you can do now. Yeah. If you can go back and get replays of races. I think he was a better horse than Owendale in that race, and just happened not to beat him.
He didn't get a good trip, but I'll tell you what, that move that Owendale made, you watch that. That was incredible. It was scary good. He passed those horses like they were standing still in the turn, and he did it 4 wide.
And the 13 is Win, Win, Win. What a great name.
Except he didn't win.
Only when he wins.
Pimentel is in the saddle, ran 9th in the Derby. Who knows where he would have ended up if not for the traffic down the stretch. He might have done a little bit better. I don't think he's going to win the race, but win is a horse that could make some noise here, even at the longer odds. Again, I think it's a horse that could benefit from his position on the outside.
Yeah, this is a horse that's had problems breaking out of the gate. Yeah. When he gets out of the gate, he has a tendency to veer left or right. And when you got horses, on the outside of you and you veer out, you cause problems. Well, being from the 13 post position and the fact that Another Twist of Fate will be gunning out of the gate, I think he can just get out of the gate, cross over, and sit where he wants. They did add blinkers to this horse this week as well, meaning that they might have him a little closer to the pace. And win if he gets the fractions. This is a very good closing horse. I don't think he liked the mud at Churchill for the Kentucky Derby. Dry track, fast fractions. You could see him flying late to get a big piece of the ticket.
We still have a lot to cover. We're going to cover our WagerTalk Marquee matchup, which is on tonight's NBA game. We're going to tell you how you can get Marco's Preakness package, and we will tell you just how much Marco won last year at the Preakness. Had you followed his picks last year, let's just say you would have done rather well for yourself. We'll cover that, and we'll also have our Lions Physical Therapy play of the day when we come back.
The Las Vegas Sports Line.
Dave Cokin with John Lyons from Lyons Physical Therapy. So give me a rundown on maybe a typical treatment at LPT.
Sure, Dave. On an initial consult, we'll sit down with the patient for at least 10 or 15 minutes, get a history of their injury or their condition. Then we'll move into an assessment where we put our hands on the patient, take them through a few special tests to identify what the pain source is and what the actual injury is. Then we'll use some modalities like heat and electric stimulation to reduce their pain and muscle spasms. And typically our physical therapist or assistant will do some type of manual stretching, massage therapy, or range of motion on that patient. And after the initial visit, we typically see patients 2 to 3 times a week for 4 to 6 weeks.
LionsPTLV.com, 702-476-0222.
It's Terrible Herb's 60-year celebration. And to say thank you, we're giving away 10 experiences of a